Alright guys, so we gotta talk about what, in my opinion, is the biggest threat to this country in the media, which is the extremist political violence sponsoring network of MSNBC that routinely platforms individuals that not only call for violence against people that they don't like politically, particularly Trump supporting Republicans and the Republican Party as a whole. They also commonly engage in what, again, I could define as racist hate speech, particularly towards white people, okay? A whole lot of the opinions that are perpetuated on that platform are not grounded in reality whatsoever, okay? At the very least, they're tone deaf, if not downright hypocritical, which is exactly what this take right here is from resident lunatic on MSNBC, Elie Mystal, who I talk about probably more than anybody, to be quite honest with you. Even though I probably shouldn't. I'm giving this guy much more fame than he actually deserves. But my God, man, some of this guy's takes I can't help but respond to because they're so silly, right? They're so silly. So with that being said, Elie Mystal went on Tiffany Cross's show to basically claim that white conservatives always get violent in this country when they don't get their way politically. Yes, he said white conservatives are the people that always go to violence when they can't get their way politically. Again, one of the most tone-deaf things I've ever heard on television. Take a listen.
I mean, the courts have always been such a big deal for the Republican Party, right? During Trump's tenure, he appointed over 200 judges, a majority white male judges. Some had never been judges before and really had very flimsy resumes to take up these positions. But it's not just the courts that are threatened here, Elie. This is something that is very concerning to me because Trump, and I will caution our viewers, I do not enjoy playing Trump sound. I do not enjoy giving him attention and centering him because that's exactly what he wants. But this threat to the country, I do think it's important to play and talk about. He's threatening the country, Elie. Take a listen to what he said just this week, and then we'll talk about it on the other side.
I think if it happened, I think you'd have problems in this country, the likes of which perhaps we've never seen before. I don't think the people of the United States would stand for it.
What kind of problems, Mr. President?
I think they'd have big problems. Big problems. I just don't think they'd stand for it. They will not sit still and stand for this ultimate of hoaxes.
I mean, this sounds a lot like stand back and stand by. He's not acting like he's under investigation. He has a rally planned in Ohio tonight. This kind of thing is quite scary, Elie, and I just want to be petty again and say, you know what? We tried to tell you. So now here we are facing this man who keeps trying to rally the troops and give a wink and a nod to the Tiki Torch marchers to essentially create havoc, not just in the court system, but also in these streets. Your take.
Let's start here, okay? Let's start with the problem with the fourth estate, the American media. Listen to that clip again, right? That Hugh Hewitt made himself sound like Billy Bush in that clip, right?
Yeah.
You're what kind of problems, Mr. President?
Right.
Like, he's threatening to unleash domestic terrorism on the country if he is held accountable for crime, and you, a media person, is sitting there saying, what kind of problems might we have? What is that? What is that? At some point, the fourth estate is going to have to realize its complicity in allowing these white domestic terrorists to organize and attain some level of legitimacy as they threaten our democracy. So I want to cable that because that's a huge part of the problem. The cause of the problem, of course, is Trump himself and his MAGA acolytes themselves and the people who are willing to do the violence in Trump's name. Again, I want to say that I'm not surprised that he's threatening this because A, he's literally done it before. And B, this is literally what conservative white folks do when they don't get their way. They turn violent. As a black man in this country, as a person who is aware of the black history in the New World, white people turn violent when they don't politically get their way all the damn time in this country. It's what they do. And so from the perspective of a black person, I'm kind of like, welcome to the world that I've been living in, America, because now what we have is white domestic terrorists threatening to turn violence against non-black people, against everybody else. if the white supremacist ideology doesn't win the day and their white supremacist king is held accountable for crime.
And I want to point out, Elie,
normal.
You're right, and you're not opining. I mean, that statement is rooted in history and facts.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, wow. Wow, I cannot believe, I can't believe that this guy fixed his lips to go on national TV and to claim that it's white conservatives that lose their minds and turn to political violence every time they don't get their way in this country. This is a guy who seems to be very, very, very worried about so-called domestic terrorism and domestic violence from people who don't commit acts of domestic violence in this country at nearly the same levels as groups like BLM and Antifa, right? BLM composed mostly of black and brown people, and Antifa composed mostly of white liberals, okay? It's almost like this guy didn't watch the BLM protests, and this guy never heard of it, right? He never heard of the BLM riots, Antifa riots, all that political violence that was happening because these people weren't getting their way, okay? He didn't see the Roe v. Wade riots, the political violence that happened there because people weren't getting their way. I mean, we had an attempted assassination on a Supreme Court judge because people weren't getting their way, right? Because white liberals, white liberal women mostly, weren't getting their way. But this guy just pretends like that's just not a thing. That doesn't exist. Outside of January 6th, give me a time where white conservatives resulted to large-scale mass political violence because they didn't get their way. In recent history, right, the last 10 years, I'll give you 10 years. I'll wait, right? I'll have a hard time thinking of something. What are they going to go with? Large-scale mass political violence at the same level we saw with BLM and Antifa and the Roe v. Wade protests. Show me one. Outside of January 6th, and even January 6th wasn't nothing compared to those things. Nothing. It wasn't, right? Let's keep it 100. Was January 6th wrong? Of course. But it was nothing compared to the Roe v. Wade protests and the BLM/Antifa riots. Nothing compared to it. But again, in this guy's mind, you know, everybody he disagrees with on the right, they're white supremacists. Trump is a white supremacist king. Conservative white people are white domestic terrorists. And the host, Tiffany Cross, she just nods her head in agreement and is like, yeah, everything you're saying is based in fact. It's like, no, it's not based in fact at all. It's not. It's his opinion, a very wrong opinion. I just can't believe for the life of me she doesn't rebuke that. She doesn't say, hey, but we've seen political violence in this country from all sides of the political aisle, mainly from the left. She would do that if she was actually a legitimate, incredible journalist, but she's not. And this idea that Trump, if he gets arrested or if he gets thrown in jail for this, you know, Mar-a-Lago investigation, whatever, there's going to be some large-scale, you know, conservative violence in this country. And I'm like, I actually don't believe that. Do I think that there will be some political violence? Obviously, yes. I do think that that would happen, right? People will be upset, okay? And when people get upset, things happen. But conservatives aren't stupid enough to riot in their own towns, right? To riot and loot their own towns and stores because they don't get their way politically. I'm just saying. So I don't think it will be on the same level that we see with BLM and Antifa and the Roe v. Wade protesters. I don't think it will be at that same level. I think there will actually be fiery but mostly peaceful protests from conservatives if that was to happen. But see, again, the issue here with people like Elie Mystal is that he's not against domestic violence. He's totally fine with it when it comes from the left. That's why he ignores it, doesn't say anything about it. The only domestic violence he's concerned about is domestic violence that comes from people that he disagrees with politically. When they do it, it's wrong. When people on his side of the aisle do it, it's totally fine. It's correct. It's justified because they're fighting for, I don't know, who knows what they're really fighting for. But they're fighting for something that he agrees with, right? So this idea that these people are concerned about domestic violence is laughable. They're not. They're concerned about their own kind of supremacy, their woke supremacy, liberal, progressive supremacy. And you know, guys, I was thinking about this, you know, when I was looking at this topic and I was reading about this, I was like, you know, CNN, they want to be quote unquote neutral in not as partisan, right? And they're competing against MSNBC. MSNBC is whooping CNN's butt, mainly because MSNBC is just going full whole hog extremists, right? They're an extremist network, okay? They are totally fine with platforming individuals who call for political violence against people. Like, that guy Tim Ryan, who said that we need to kill and destroy or something like that. Kill and destroy. He used the word kill the MAGA movement, right? Well, that's what he said, okay? And nobody questioned him and said, well, what exactly do you mean there? But what my point here is this. MSNBC is going so extreme. Okay, they're so detached from reality that CNN, in my opinion, if they did more segments about MSNBC and their extremism and called out MSNBC and their extremism, they would get a lot more viewers, right? If they called out people like Elie Mystal in takes like this, right, and they said, okay, guys, does this actually make sense? Right? Well, what is going through this guy's head? Did he actually fix his lips and go on and say that on TV? That white conservatives resort to political violence every time they don't get their way in this country? If CNN actually covered these extremist things on MSNBC, I think that would be an easy way for them to get some viewers, right? That would be an easy way for them to get viewers. Because at the end of the day, they would at least seem like a network that's grounded in some sanity. I mean, I've never heard any statements on Fox News that call black people black domestic terrorists, right? Or black supremacists, okay? I've never heard that on Fox News, right? Never heard it. But you hear the term white supremacist, white terrorist. You hear those words all the time on MSNBC. I mean, there are people who have went on MSNBC. What's the dude named? Rick Wilson from the Lincoln Project, and just flat out was like, yeah, somebody needs to put a bullet in Trump, right? And a presidential candidate and a politician. He's called for people to assassinate the president, and they allowed him back on the network. The dude wasn't banned from the network. CNN should be calling him out for it. Fox News should be calling him out for it. Because they're getting to the level where their rhetoric is actually legitimately dangerous. And we're not talking about the stuff that they pretend with Fox News, right? They pretend that Fox News and Newsbacks are dangerous and they're fostering political violence. No, Fox News don't say stuff like that, right? They're not going that far with anything. MSNBC is just off the rails, right? They're just off the rails with their, overt calls for political violence against white people and conservatives, right? And they need to be put in their place. We need some mainstream outlet, preferably an outlet that is on the liberal side, that leans left like CNN, to start to call this stuff out for what it is. This is not okay. It's not okay. So that being said, I hope some producer at CNN watches this video and takes my advice, because I think I got the formula, right? I got the formula to bring CNN back to life. Start going after the extremism on MSNBC. It'll actually make you seem credible, okay? It really will. And it'll get people from the right and conservatives to actually watch your network. Just a little bit, right? Just a little bit. I'm just saying. This is what you want. This is an easy path, right? Because these people are just absolutely insane, right? The people at MSNBC, they're just off the rails, right? They really are. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a black conservative perspective. Peace.